Now I'll introduce our learned faculty, Dr. Rakesh Gupta. He hailed from the land Vrindavan. He he got first rank from in the LLB. He has various degrees: FCA, FCS, ICWM, MBA, LLM, and PhD. He is appointed as a member of Income Tax Appellate Tribunal at the age of 37 years, but he has moved to resigned there, and now practicing as an advocate in the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, High Courts, and Supreme Court of India. He has authored various books published by the Taxman: Search and Seizure and Assessment of Search Cases, Taxation of Real Estates, Developers and Joint Development Arrangements, Law Relating to Black Money. As already said by Purushottam Bhai, his wife is a member of Income Tax Tribunal at Ahmedabad. He is a member of International Association of Tax Judges and participated in meetings held at Helsinki, Finland in October 17, Cambridge, UK in September 19. He has invited us to address Chamber of Commerce and Industry on Finance Bill in 2019 in Abu Dhabi and Bahrain. So let's learn from Dr. Rakesh Gupta. I invite you, sir. Okay. I invite Dr. Anjali Choksi and Purushottam Bhai to present memento to Dr. Rakesh Gupta.
His son is CA, CS, and he is doing philosophy from Columbia University. He is not in our practice, and he is settled at US. And he is totally following the Sadhguru's philosophy. This is one addition we can say how is the culture of family of C. Rakesh Gupta, sir.
Thank you for nice deliberations. A very good morning to all of you. Ahmedabad is my half home, but I do seldom come. And yesterday I asked my wife to give me the complete residential, because people ask me, where do you live in Ahmedabad? I do not recollect. I used to forget Thaltes, so I have written it, Thaltes, and so that if somebody asks me, and what kind of a half home then do you have? Because 5 days, I don't have time there. In the evening on 5th day, she comes to Delhi. So friends, my memento has been given. I am a lawyer, practicing, though my heart is that of a chartered accountant, but then I am in the profession of law. And with offense to none, it is often said for the lawyers, कि if fee is not received, then why work? And if fee is received, then also to why to work? So the thing for which I have come, I have got it. But still, since I am a chartered accountant in the core of my heart, so the topic is nuances. I was wondering whether it should be nuances or the nonsenses. I am a poet also, and I understand that you all understand Hindi. So I do write satire in text and on epics also, on Mahabharata and all. So on penalty, when I was coming day before yesterday, I composed it. Because I get time while traveling. आयकर विधान में पेनल्टियां अपार हैं. I have to speak on penalties. आयकर विधान में पेनल्टियां अपार हैं. विधान निर्माता तुम्हें प्रणाम बारंबार है. इतनी सारी पेनल्टियां, छोटी बड़ी चूक और गलतियां, सबकी हैं पेनल्टियां. कुछ करने की पेनल्टी 271 capital D, that if you accept, if you accept any loan or deposit or a specified sum, otherwise then through the banking channel, then you have to pay penalty. So कुछ करने की पेनल्टी, कुछ ना करने की पेनल्टी, कभी छुपाने की पेनल्टी, कभी दिखाने में पेनल्टी, देरी में पेनल्टी, हेराफेरी में पेनल्टी, कभी जाने पर पेनल्टी. अरे जाने पर भी पेनल्टी लग जाती है कि that if you have been served a summon, then you cannot leave unless the court, which is taking your statement on oath, allows you to go. So, but then if you go, कभी जाने में पेनल्टी, कभी ना जाने पर पेनल्टी, कभी जानने पर पेनल्टी, knowingly, कभी जानने पर पेनल्टी, कभी ना जानने पर पेनल्टी, बहाने पर पेनल्टी, भरने पर पेनल्टी, ना भरने पर पेनल्टी, तोड़ने पर पेनल्टी, जोड़ने पर पेनल्टी, जिंदे रहते पेनल्टी, मुर्दे रहते पेनल्टी, भरदे पेनल्टी, दर्दे पेनल्टी. Penalties are like sanctions. You must have read. अच्छा, मैं एक आग्रह करूंगा आपसे, करबद्ध विनती करूंगा कि अपने मोबाइल्स को वाइब्रेशन पे कर लें, बिकॉज when I communicate with God. So if God has got the telephone and it keeps on ringing, so it would obstruct a bhakt. Bhakt, not in that sense of Gujarat wala bhakt. I remember, पुरुषोत्तम जी ने हमको आमंत्रित किया बोलने के लिए 2013 में, और खुद ये बीमार हो गए. तो जो उस वक्त के चेयरमैन थे, वो बोले स्टेज से, मुझे अभी तक याद है, आपके इंस्टीट्यूट के ऑडिटोरियम में प्रोग्राम था, कि था वी वेट फॉर समबडी फ्रॉम दिल्ली टू कम. आई सेड वी आर वेटिंग फॉर समबडी फ्रॉम अहमदाबाद टू कम टू दिल्ली. Penalties are like sanctions. You must have heard in yesteryears that sanctions were imposed on Iraq. So penalties are one form of sanctions. But then what is the rationale for penalties? The rationale of penalties is to give the teeth to the legislation. Because if penalties are not prescribed, then how to exact compliances? Therefore, it is a price which one will have to pay for non-compliance. And it gives teeth to the legislation in order to make it effective and efficacious. Now, penalties are not considered as the source of revenue collection. Objective is not to mop up the resources. The object is to compensate the institution of a state. State, though is very mighty, state is very mighty, but state suffers when a deviation from law tax takes place. The state suffers when there is an evasion of tax, or when there is an attempt to evade tax. The state suffers. So penalty is to compensate the state for that loss, for that damage, for that injury it suffers. But then the object is not to break the taxpayer. Objective is not to break the taxpayer, not to push him back to the wall, but to bend him. And a deterrence message is sent to the other fence sitters. Those who are sitting on the fence, the message is sent, and that message is quite a deterring message, the deterrence message, that in case you choose to violate it, then there are enough mechanisms under the statute to take care of these deviations. So, the object of penalty, even at the cost of repetition, I would say, is not to break the taxpayer. Penalties are considered as quasi-criminal in nature. मैं पहले सोचता था, अच्छा मैं एक हिंदी भाषी प्रदेश का रहने वाला हूँ, उत्तर प्रदेश का, जैसा मेरे परिचय में बतलाया कि मैं वृंदावन से हूँ, अन्नपूर्णा जी भी वृंदावन से हैं, पर हाँ, लेकिन वो कृष्ण राधा वाला हिसाब नहीं था. हाँ, कहीं आप समझें कि भाई वृंदावन हैं. So natural corollary is, fails here. So I used to wonder when I remember very vividly, I did my graduation from St. John's College, Agra. When I came to do chartered accountancy in Delhi in the year 1980, I qualified my graduation at the age of 17 and a half. So I came to do chartered accountancy to Delhi, and then I started reading English for the first time. Prior to that, I do vividly remember, I used to say auditing as Ankik Kshana, Tulan Patra trial balance, balance sheet Arthik Chittha, bank reconciliation as bank Samadhan Vivarana, errors and omissions Trutiyan, adjustments at Samayojan. Now, for the first time, when I went to Delhi to study chartered accountancy's paper at that time could not be written in Hindi. Had that been the case, then I would have surely attempted my papers in Hindi. And the very first study material which I encountered was company law. I started reading it, Solomon versus Solomon. I asked a question to me, why should one fight with oneself? Then I thought, in the same breath, probably it must be Mr. Solomon versus Mrs. Solomon. There must be some divorce proceedings or matrimonial dispute proceeding must be on. Now, my problems were not ending at that stage. Then I started reading further. Then after every fifth line, there used to be one word, provided. I used to wonder because provided का जो हिंदी मतलब हमको बताया गया था, कुछ देना. हमने कहा भाई, what is it giving? Then I thought, probably pain, anguish, torture, trauma. So that is how I remember in 1996. You have got time, na? Because maybe that the stress management session also may be combined with that of mine. Because अहमदाबाद वालों ने बहुत सालों में मुझे बुलाया है, जैसे कहते हैं ना एक्सकेवेशन में निकला मैं, हैं? I mean कई बार ऐसा होता है, हड़प्पा भी ऐसी हुआ था, दब गया, फिर then some attempts are made, Ajanta Ellora also were discovered like this. So after Purushottam ji, I was forgotten. Probably I was buried under the heap of time, history. But then since I have resurfaced, therefore it is my bounden duty even to de-stress. So in 1996, there was a search on me. Now one client came to us and said, Rakesh ji, Rajkumar is my partner, कि राकेश जी, राजकुमार जी, ऑडिटर तो आप बनते ही रहते हो, कभी डायरेक्टर बने हो? हम तुम्हें डायरेक्टर बनाएंगे. A very pleasant proposal. Very pleasant proposal. We became directors. We never knew at that, because 1996, 1995, what was our age? I was 32. So I never knew that this proposal to make us directors is a part of a package. And that package was that associated with this kind of a proposal are the inherent risks that company was, so were we. I remember on 14th of August 1990, if you ask me the date of my marriage, I may tend to forget. But then this date, 14th of August 1996 is the date which is etched in my heart, because the departmental authorities came to my house uninvited. So they were not guests. Guests को हिंदी में बोलते हैं अतिथि. They were not guests, though they also did not come without telling me, but then they were not guests. So he introduced himself. My name is Neelmesh Barua. I am 1982 batch IRS officer. I have got warrant to search you. और मैं सच बताऊं, मेरे आंखों के सामने ना अंधेरा आ गया. चाहे हम उस वक्त भी हमारी प्रैक्टिस ठीक ठाक थी, पर आंखों के सामने अंधेरा आ गया, because somebody showing you the warrant. मैंने कहा वो obviously हमने क्या करना था, शेर ने करना था. I want to record your statement. I get up early. Even in Ahmedabad, I don't have any work, but then I get up at 4:30. So I used to get up at that time also very early, because in the morning you have to read your briefs. At that time I used to appear very often to CIT appeal. So that day's briefs were lying on my table, about 7 files, 7 matters were listed that day. So he asked me that we have to record a statement. मैंने कहा let it be. मैंने कहा but then there is one humble prayer. Prayer is that I want my statement be recorded in Hindi. अच्छा, I thought he is Barua, Barua may be from Odisha or from Assam. He may find himself difficult in Hindi. अरे भाई ये रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हो क्या हैं? तो and he agreed. I do not know. It was to my astonishment because he was acting as a court at that time. He could have very well said, no, I will not record a statement in Hindi because the official language of the court is English. In case you are not able to understand and appreciate, we will translate it for you. But then he did not say this. He recorded my statement in Hindi. And the very first question he asked, it's all documented, it's a matter of record. Why do you want your statement to be recorded in Hindi? I said, Aja, first of all, out of this entire team, which was sent to our residence, was not from local, not from Delhi, not from Faridabad where we live. It was imported from Jalandhar, Ludhiana, Amritsar, so that we should not be in a position to influence them. Because at that time also we were appearing with the tax authorities very often. So first of all, when he agreed that my statement can be recorded in Hindi, then he asked from his team who can write. So there was one person from Rohtak, and Rohtak is in Haryana. He said, I'll write. So when he asked me the question, why do you want a statement to be recorded in Hindi? I said, right. मैं भारतवर्ष के हिंदी भाषी प्रदेश उत्तर प्रदेश का मूल निवासी हूं और स्वयं को आंग्ल भाषा की अपेक्षा हिंदी में सरल व सहज पाता हूं. हिंदी वैसे भी भाषा वैसे भी एक अभिव्यक्ति का माध्यम भर है. वो रोहतक वाला बोला, मैं नहीं लिखता जी. Anyway, so the second session also of today I am taking. So it is called quasi-criminal. Now I used to wonder when I was taught that the assessing officers is quasi-judicial authority. I used to wonder what is the meaning of quasi. I thought in my own wisdom, it may not be quasi, probably it may mean in Hindi kasai. Quasi. But then something which is not full, which is midway, it is called quasi. Similarly, the penalty provisions are considered as quasi-criminal. Now, what is the import of it? What is the effect of it? The effect of the penalty provisions being quasi-criminal impinges upon the interpretation of penalty provision. Since it is part of criminal jurisprudence, though essentially they are part of the civil law, therefore the rule of strict construction has to apply. That whenever it comes to the interpretation of the penalty provision, then the settled jurisprudence is that you have to construe the provision strictly in terms of the language which the legislature has employed. And then the second principle, which is emanating from that original, that penalties are quasi-criminal in nature, is that when there is an ambiguity, when a penalty provision is capable of being interpreted in more than one way, when there is ambivalence, then that ambivalence will have to be resolved in favor of the taxpayer. That is the settled principle. And these interpretational rules follow from the very basic fact that the penalties are quasi-criminal in nature. Though essentially they are oozing out from the civil law, but then now under the Income Tax Act, मैंने इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट को कोसना होता है तो पानी पी पी के कोसूंगा, इसलिए मैंने पानी ले लिया है. Now, our framers of law, they have got the sixth sense. What is that sixth sense? The moment a provision gets settled, meaning thereby that all disputes in the interpretation of a particular provision, they are almost at the stage of the final settlement, they unsettle it. That is the sixth sense. 271(1)(c was there on the statute from 1922. In 1922, its corresponding provision, section 28, subsection 1, clause C of 1922 Act was there. So, till 2016, that regime was functioning well. But on one fine morning, our law minister thought that this provision has to be consigned to the dustbin of history. Therefore, 270(11)(c) was packed lock, stock and barrel. And in its place, section 270(A) came. So, under 270(11)(c), concealment of particulars of income or furnishing of inaccurate particulars of income gave way to underreported income. Now, what was the rationale? Why that almost settled regime of 270(11)(c) now was thought to be sent to the dustbin of history? It is not coming out from the memorandum, but we as the taxpayers also have got our sixth sense, like the framers of law. In 270(11)(c), there were very technical, super technical, hyper technical issues which are coming, like satisfaction is not discernible from the assessment order. Satisfaction has not come to be recorded in the assessment order. The charge is vague. The notice which has been issued, it doesn't strike off the inapplicable clause. I mean, you all must be doing it, dealing it. Penalty was initiated for concealment of particulars of income. But in the penalty order, the penalty has come to be imposed for furnishing inaccurate particulars of income. So, it appears that the framers of law were fed up. Because even in the legitimate cases, the penalties, though imposed, confirmed by the first appeal, used to be knocked off by the tribunal. So, legislature then became wiser. Law jo hota hai is a dynamic. It keeps on evolving. We also are evolving. It keeps on evolving with passage of time, with the experience which the legislature gains. So, the amendment is made. Law keeps on evolving. The legislature became wiser. Legislature thought by being wiser, let us put an end to the scope of these technical, hyper-technical, super-technical issues arising. Therefore, with one stroke of pen, on one fine morning, by the Finance Act 2016, 270(11)(c) became history, and in its place, section 270(A) came, underreporting of income. So, the law came that the assessing officer, or the other authorities also, but then we will confine to assessing. The assessing officer may direct in any proceeding a person in respect of his underreported income to pay penalty apart from the tax, if any, payable by him. Underreported. So, by using only one expression, underreporting of income, the possibility that the charge is vague, the charge is not specific, these twin charges are mutually exclusive, the existence of one excludes the application of other, all those things were sought to be buried deep. That is a different matter. Still, they are not buried. That is a different matter. Because after all, if the government thinks that they have got the ingenious way of inventions, even the taxpayers, lawyers and chartered accountants, they are equally ingenious. They also devise the ways. So, but on the part of the government, they try to simplify that in the course of any proceeding, they have refrained from using the expression satisfied, which was there in erstwhile section 270(11)(c). They say the assessing officer, now joint commissioner appeal or the commissioner appeal or the principal commissioner, during the course of any proceeding, in case of underreported income, may direct the person concerned to pay penalty, apart from the tax, if any, payable. अच्छा, इसकी भी बड़ी कहानी थी. 270(11)(c) में, prior to 1/4/2003, the language of 270(11)(c) was that the assessee shall be liable to pay penalty in addition to tax. Now, ingenious interpretations the taxpayers took that the payment of tax is a condition precedent for me to pay penalty. So, if there is no tax payable, then there is no question of, because I said a little while ago the rule of strict construction. So, if by following the rule of strict construction, so if tax is not payable in terms of section 270(11)(c) as then it was prevailing, then I am not required to pay penalty. The legislature became wiser. Then legislature inserted the expressions if any. So that if any now has been brought in 270 capital A also. So penalty under section 270 capital A is in addition to the tax if any payable by a person. So what is the meaning of underreported income? If you read subsection 2 or you read subsection 3 or read subsection 10 of section 270 capital A, I can guarantee, may not be Modi's guarantee, but then I can guarantee, I can guarantee that we will be more confused. So, let me put it in one sentence and we all will appreciate what is the meaning of underreported income. The meaning of underreported income is that whenever there is a difference between the assessed income and the processed income, process means 143(1)(a) income, that difference is underreported income. So the legislature has consciously used only one expression, underreported income, unlike the erstwhile twin situations of concealment of particulars of income or furnishing inaccurate particulars of income. Now, somebody can raise and say, sir, there is another expression also in section 270 capital A, underreported in consequence to misreporting of income. But nonetheless, the legislature has treated even such kind of underreporting as underreported income. So, underreported income, the moment there is an assessment, and in assessment, there is say 200 rupees assessed, your return and which was processed was 120. So, you have underreported to the extent of 80 rupees. So, this is the sum and substance. I am not saying, because if I start opening subsection 2 and subsection 3 or section 270 capital A, again, that will bring chaos. So, I am trying to be simpler. May not be that accurate, but then we can understand it. The difference between the assessed income and the processed income is the amount of underreported income. The moment there is underreported income, then there is an exception which is given under subsection 6. In subsection 6, there are 5 clauses which have been given. When the notice is issued, you must ensure that you bring your case in any one of those 5 situations. The first situation is that you have offered an explanation and that explanation has been substantiated by you. You have disclosed, you have bared your chest with respect to facts, and your explanation has been found bona fide by the penalty imposing authority. So, in respect of any addition, any disalliance which is made in assessment, if you are able to prove that here are the facts, here is my explanation, I am substantiating my explanation, there is a perfect bona fide in my explanation, then the penalty may not be imposed qua that amount. Suppose if there is a disalliance under section 40A2, that you have made an excessive payment to the related party, and excessive having regard to the legitimate business needs or fair market value of the goods and services. There is section 40A2, the domestic transfer pricing which we can call. Now, the moment disalliance is made, it represents underreported income. But then if during the course of penalty, you are able to satisfy these 3 or 4 things which I said in terms of subsection 6 clause A or section 270 capital A, that these are the facts, it has been paid to such and such party, the address of that party is this, I am substantiating my explanation by leading evidence, the services rendered by him, the fair market value of the goods, according to me, was commensurate with the price paid by me, was commensurate with the fair market value. My explanation is bona fide. And if it satisfies the assessing officer, though if you ask me, from my experience of 40 years, that who is the most dissatisfied person, it is the assessing officer. And satisfaction of the assessing officer. It has got I and Girish Ahuja ji, when we travel together. So he often quotes, assessing officer will have to be satisfied, because our Income Tax Act is full of, if the assessing officer is satisfied. Now the assessing officers have gone faceless. How to satisfy them? Now another question. अच्छा, पता नहीं देखो कानून में भी ना किस किस तरह की, मैं उसको उस दिन पढ़ रहा था, मैंने कहा इस फेसलेस का मतलब क्या है? उसका हिंदी जो उसका जो रूपांतर था, मुखविहीन। मुझे बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग लगा। मैं हिंदी का व्यक्ति हूं, लेकिन मुझे बड़ा अजीब लगा, मुखविहीन। अच्छा, और वो मुखविहीनता इस हद तक फॉलो होती है, मेरे ऑफिस वाले वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग मांगते हैं सीआईटी अपील में, या असेसिंग ऑफिसर से भी मांगते हैं, तो वो अपना मुखविहीन इस हद तक रखते हैं कि अपना वीडियो चालू ही नहीं करते हैं। मुखविहीन, हीन दीन, जो भी है। मुझसे पूछ रही थी शिखा जी, आपका अनुभव कैसा है फेसलेस के साथ? मैंने कहा भाई मैं तो फेसफुल के साथ एपियर होता था, फेसलेस तो मुझे याद आता है, एक दूसरा सेशन भी मेरा ही है कि एक एसएससी एक असेसिंग ऑफिसर के पास चला गया मतलब पहले वो हमें लेके जाता था, हमारी हर बार जाने की फीस होती थी। उसने कहा कि अनुभव देखो, एसएससी बहुत समझदार होता है, तो उसने कहा कि कुछ तो अनप्रोडक्टिव सी हियरिंग होती हैं, इस अनप्रोडक्टिव हियरिंग में मैं प्रोडक्टिवली कमाया हुआ पैसा क्यों खर्च करूं, तो मैं खुद चला जाता हूं। वो खुद चला गया। उसको देख के असेसिंग ऑफिसर बहुत खुश हुआ कि चलो आया। तो असेसिंग ऑफिसर ने उससे पूछा कि हे करदाता, हे एसएससी, अब एसएससी के मन में पहुंच तो गया, लेकिन दुखी हो रही थी कि पता नहीं क्या पूछेगा, क्या करेगा। बोले चलो प्रश्न तो हम पूछेंगे। तो बोला सर ये 142(1) का क्वेश्चन है। बोला नहीं यार, तुम अभी इतने टेक्निकल मत हो, हमारा प्रश्न बड़ा सिंपल है कि तुम, और प्रश्न से पहले मेरा एक सजेशन है। अब वो एसएससी तो ही गॉट बिवाइल्डर्ड कि ये हो क्या रहा है। तो उसने कहा असेसिंग ऑफिसर ने, मेरा सजेशन ये है कि तुम मेरी आंखों में झांको। अब वो एसएससी और परेशान हो गया, यार व्हाट काइंड ऑफ सजेशन इज दिस, एंड दिस सजेशन हैज कम फ्रॉम हिम, एंड इंस्टेड ऑफ हिम हैड दिस suggestion come from her, then it would have made some sense, it would have been a pleasant suggestion. So he got perplexed. Now assessing officer ने उसकी इस परेशानी को भांपा, हमारे यूपी में बोलते हैं ताड़ा। तो बोला अब मेरा प्रश्न शुरू होता है, अब जैसे अमिताभ बच्चन कहता है ना, मेरा प्रश्न शुरू होता है अब कि out of my 2 eyes, one of them is made of stone. पहचान। अब वो और परेशान हो गया। अब लेकिन उसको इतनी समझ में आ गई कि ये असेसिंग ऑफिसर मुझसे मजाक कर रहा है। जब किसी आदमी को ये लगे मुझसे मजाक कर रहा है, तो दूसरा ही मजाक करने के लिए तैयार हो जाता है। तो उसने कहा साहब आपकी सीधी वाली आंख ये पत्थर की है। वो असेसिंग ऑफिसर बड़ा सरप्राइज हुआ, बोला यार तूने ये कैसे बता दिया। बोला सर बिकॉज सम सिंपैथी, सम काइंडनेस वॉज कमिंग फ्रॉम दैट आई ओनली। सो अब इस तरह के वाकया कैसे पैदा होंगे, जब मुखबिर हो गए तो कैसे पैदा होंगे। बट एनीवे वी वर ऑन पेनल्टी। नाउ इन पेनल्टी the question comes Subsection 1, assessing officer. I can understand. Assessing officer is supreme. मुझे याद है, I lost one case in Delhi High Court. The name of that case is RDS projects. I don't have any claims. Even if you record it, I don't have any. Because this is a matter of record. It is a matter which is in the public domain. RDS projects, we filed writ against the notice under section 148. My Lord Justice Vipin Sanghi, as he then was there, hearing the matter. I said, my lords, I had to make arguments for an hour. No, what is the need? And my lords, the need is to be appreciated on behalf of the taxpayer. Well, okay. Then we give you one option. If we are not satisfied after your 1 hour argument, we will impose a cost of 2 lakhs of rupees. But then, though it was quite hard bargain, but then I did not have any option. My lords, at the final argument, I did not consent, but my lords, then I will argue for 1 hour. I argued, I failed. And I came with a negative order with 2 lakhs of rupees cost awarded by the court. So, court did not show indulgence. I was asked to rejoin the assessment proceeding before assessing officer. I joined the proceeding before assessing officer, and I don't have any hesitation in saying that the assessing officer accepted my objections against 148 notice, and he dropped the assessment proceeding. So, assessing officers are, now you can very well estimate the power of the assessing officer. The relief which the High Court did not give, in that case was given by the assessing officer himself. So, that is the power, that is the might. Whether that is right or not, this is for you to cite and the assessing officer. So, subsection 1 says assessing officer. I can understand the for assessing officer to impose penalty, but then the CIT appeal. Now, CIT appeal, in which circumstances can initiate a levy penalty? If an assessing officer, in his wisdom, chooses not to initiate penalty, whether that penalty can be initiated by the Commissioner appeal? No. Commissioner's appeals power to initiate penalties in respect to the enhancement which he would make or he may make by exercising his powers under section 251 of the Income Tax Act. Similarly, Principal Commissioner of Income Tax can also initiate a levy penalty. But then, in 263, as all of us know, that if an order is found erroneous and prejudicial to the interest or revenue, then the Principal Commissioner can set aside, or even he can himself take upon the task of making additions or making disallowance. So, qua the additions and the disallowances made by Principal Commissioner, in 263 proceeding, his jurisdiction to initiate levy penalty qua that amount alone. Now, that has been recognized under section 270 capital A, subsection 1. Now, misreporting. So, I was on subsection 6, clause A I discussed, then there is clause B, clause C, clause D and clause E, that if an addition or disallowance has been made on estimate, where SSE himself had made some estimate which was verified by the assessing officer and full facts were disclosed by the SSE, then the penalty may not be imposed. This is one of the exceptions under subsection 6 of section 270 capital A. Then, if an addition has been made on estimate, complete books of accounts are maintained, which were accepted as correct by the assessing officer, but the method of accounting followed by the SSE is such that the correct profits cannot be deduced, then the assessing officer may not levy the penalty. This is third exception. Fourth is also where amount of addition is made, though international transaction has been reported, complete records have been maintained under section 92D, then also the penalty may not be imposed. So, these are the exceptions which we must make use of while replying to the penalty notice. But then now, subsection 8 and subsection 9, underreported income in consequence to misreporting of income. 6 situations have been enlisted. 6 situations have been enlisted into subsection 9, misrepresentation or suppression of facts. अपने आप में यही क्लॉज काफी था. आप किसी भी स्थिति को ले लीजिएगा, वह चीज या तो मिसरिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ फैक्ट्स में आएगी या सप्रेशन ऑफ फैक्ट्स में आएगी या दोनों में आएगी. लेकिन कई बार क्या होता है ना, हमारे यहाँ जो लेजिस्लेचर है ना, दे ओवरडू. मुझे याद है एक सेक्शन है 139 सबसेक्शन 1 कैपिटल बी, आप पढ़िएगा जाके उसे. बल्क रिटर्न फाइलिंग की एक सेक्शन थी, हम भूल गए हैं क्योंकि उसका कोई ज्यादा उपयोग नहीं होता है. Our memory is short, if not yours, at least of mine. I have forgotten. But I remember, there is that section 139 1 capital B कि लेजिस्लेचर किस तरह ओवरडू करता है. आप उस सेक्शन को पढ़ेंगे, उसमें लिखा हुआ है ए पर्सन who has filed the return of income and a person who has not filed the return of income. Now what remains? A person would either file the return or would not file the return. The legislature could have said all persons, but then the strange are the ways of the legislature using the expressions. Similarly in 132, when Kapil Sibbal's father Hiralal Sibbal was searched in 1974, he was the leading lawyer of Punjab and Haryana, Hiralal Sibbal. So his house was searched. During the search, one of his best friends, who himself was the district and session judge of Shimla, he was staying with him because his father was admitted in hospital in Chandigarh. So and he was a Sardarji fellow. So this district and session judge Sardarji, when he found his host in problem because of the search, so he said, हमारे यहाँ भी होता है ना कि भाई यदि हम किसी के घर गए हैं और वो ऑलरेडी किसी परेशानी में है, तो मन में प्रश्न आता है कि उसको और क्यों परेशान करें. So he wanted to make an exit. So he started winding up his clothes. Then this authorized officer walked into him and said, "Sir, where are you going?" So that guest said, who himself was a district and session judge, my host is in problem. I do not want to multiply his problem. Therefore, I want to make an exit. I will make my arrangement in some hotel. This authorized officer said, no, sir, how can you go? How can you go? Oh, I am the guest of the guest. How can you go? But then he knew the law because as a district and session judge, he had issued several search warrants. Then that Sardarji fellow, he asked the authorized officer, do you have warrant to search me? अब ये बगलें झांकने लगे, इनके पास था नहीं. तो इन्होंने कहा ऑथराइज्ड, इज पार्ट ऑफ रिकॉर्ड 101 ITR. It is reported, H.L. Sibbal versus Commissioner of Income Tax. Then that authorized officer said, sir, I don't have as of now, but kindly wait for an half an hour, I'll get one for you. उन दोनों मोबाइल तो होते नहीं थे, ये टेलीफोन. अब उस कमिश्नर थे माथुर साहब, उन्होंने कहा एक क्या भेजना, 4-5 भेज देते. उन्होंने 4-5 साइन करके वारंट भेज दिए. अब ऑथराइज्ड ऑफिसर के पास आए तो बोला, सर आपका शुभ नाम क्या है? भाई उसमें भरना पड़ेगा ना. ऑल दिस आर पार्ट ऑफ दैट प्लीडिंग 101 ITR. उसने नाम पूछा, नाम वहां भरा, फिर बोला सर लीजिए प्रेम पत्र लीजिए और अब मुझे सर्च करने दीजिए. तो सर्च होने लगी. क्या करते, सर्च करवाई, उसके बाद रिट फाइल हुई. रिट में ये सारे तथ्य उस कोर्ट के समक्ष रखे गए. अब कोर्ट में एक प्रश्न आया कि भाई जिसके नाम सर्च वारंट था वो समझ में आता है, एक घर में रहने वाला व्यक्ति जो एक गेस्ट है उसको आप किस आधार पर सर्च कर सकते हैं? ऐसा प्रावधान आप हमको विधान में दिखलाई. काइंडली शो अस द रेलिवेंट प्रोविजन अंडर द एक्ट. 132 वाज स्कैन्ड, ये कहीं था ही नहीं. रूल 112 में मिल गया कि दैट यू कैन सर्च ए पर्सन हु इज इनसाइड द हाउस. इट वाज सेड टू द लॉर्डशिप्स कि माय लॉर्ड काइंडली सी रूल 112. This is the power. But then came the question, the rules may have the power, rules derive their power from the main enactment, rules are the subordinate legislation, it's a delegated legislation. Therefore, you show us the power under the main enactment, under the income tax. It was not there. The search was quashed. Not only because of this, but because of several reasons. The legislature became wiser. Legislature brought amendment. And you see, सरकार में ना नी जर्क रिएक्शन होता है. सरकार आपने देखा होगा, नहीं करेगी, जब करेगी तो किसी ने कहा कि गवर्नमेंट एक्ट्स लाइक ए बुलडोजर. आपके गुजरात में हो सकता है बुलडोजर ना, हमारे यूपी में बहुत बुलडोजर है. अब एमपी में भी शुरू हो गया है बुलडोजर. तो गवर्नमेंट इज लाइक ए बुलडोजर. लाइक बिफोर द बुलडोजर यू डांस बिफोर इट, you move along with it, it will not say anything. Government is like this, you dance, आप मस्ती करो बुलडोजर के सामने, कुछ नहीं कहेगा. लेकिन किसी भी तरह यदि पकड़ में आ गए इसकी में फिर वो फ्लैट कर देगा. तो गवर्नमेंट इज ऑल्सो लाइक दिस. गवर्नमेंट विल नॉट एक्ट. बट वेन इट कम्स टू एक्ट, then there is a knee-jerk reactions. So amendment was made in section 132 that the authorized officer can search a person who is inside the house, who is coming into the house, who is going out from the house. अब जो कसर रह गई है, who is paratrooping from the sky, who is surfacing from the earth, depending upon the facts and circumstances that may happen in future. So government acts in a highly in this manner. So misrepresentation of facts or suppression of facts. Misrepresentation or suppression would have covered each and everything which are there under all 6 clauses. But one very important thing, kindly remember that there may be misrepresentation, there may be suppression, there may be failure to record investment, there may be an expenditure which you are not able to substantiate, there may be failure to record receipts, there may be an international transaction which you have not disclosed. All these are 6 items in subsection 9. But if there is no addition because of these things, then howsoever you may have misrepresented, howsoever you have suppressed, maybe you may not have recorded the investment in books of account, maybe you may have entered the false entry in the books of account. If there is no addition to the income, there is no disallowance of the income, there can be no penalty under section 270 capital A. In older regime, in 271(1)(c), if there was concealment of particulars of income, you may have offered the income, you may have paid the taxes, but if assessing officer wanted to know, where from you have earned this income, now you could not be heard saying, "Arey bhai, aapko to aam khane hain, I have paid the taxes, why do you want to know where from I have earned the income?" No, that was not permissible under the old law, because there the penalty was with reference to the concealment of particulars of income. Income you may have disclosed it, but then if you are withholding the particulars, or if you are furnishing inaccurate particulars of income, so evasion of tax was not relevant. But here, under 270 capital A, all these things, misrepresentation or suppression or these charges which are there under subsection 9 and section 270 capital A, would trigger only if there is tax liability, there is a difference between the assessed income and the processed income. Only then the penalty with reference to misreporting of income can happen. Suppose, let me clarify it. A company, a closely held company, had given a loan to a shareholder who is holding more than 10% shareholding and is having accumulated profits. This transaction in normal circumstances liable to be hit by section 2 clause 22 subclause small e. Now, SSE, in order to protect that shareholder from the levy of tax, presents it by suppressing the facts or misrepresenting the facts before the assessing officer. Sir, it was not a loan, it was an advance given during the course of business. But then assessing officer finds the true nature that this was in the nature of loan. So it was misrepresentation, it was suppression. But since there could be no addition in the hands of the company, therefore, even if it was a hard rank case of suppression or misrepresentation of facts, but there could be no penal consequences in monetary terms. So, उन सारी चीज़ों में जो सबसेक्शन 9 में है, सेक्शन 270 कैपिटल ए में, उनका रियल पेनल्टी कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस जब होगा जब कोई एडिशन या टैक्स लाइबिलिटी आएगी. सपोज एक उसमें क्लॉज है that if you have debited some expenditure which you are not able to substantiate. Suppose मैंने कोई एक्सपेंडिचर क्लेम किया जिसको कि मैं सिद्ध नहीं कर पाया कि ये मेरे व्यवसाय के लिए, तो क्या होगा? Now that expenditure is liable to be added. That will swell, that will make my business profits bigger. But suppose this entity was entitled for 100% tax exemption. So, despite my business profits has been enlarged, there is no tax liability. So, despite such case being a classic case where I have not been able to substantiate the expenditure, but since my assessed income is also nil, even after making this addition, there is no penal consequences in monetary terms. Whether it is a lapse, accidental lapse on the part of legislature, or it is a conscious act on the part of the legislature. I mean, we can't say. But then, and kindly see that the framers of law, एक उसमें clause है section 279 में, if an SSE failed to record investment in the books of account. मैंने 50 करोड़ रुपए की एक एसेट बनाई और उसको मैं बुक्स में रिकॉर्ड करना मैंने नहीं, इसका मतलब नंबर 2 में खरीदी गई होगी, यही मतलब हुआ. Addition will be made under which section? Of course, under section 69. The moment an addition is made under section 69, the penalty which is leviable is under section 271 AAC. The moment a penalty is leviable under section 271 AAC, I mean 270 capital A is ruled out because it has been so specifically mentioned in both sections कि एक पेनल्टी जो 271 AAC में लगेगी, then 270 A की पेनल्टी नहीं लग सकती है. सो इस तरह के थोथे, एम्प्टी, आइडल क्लॉजेस बनाने का अभिप्राय क्या है, क्या फायदा है, और उसके पीछे जो वजह है वो क्या है? वजह कि ये प्रोविजन जो आए थे ये फाइनेंस एक्ट 2016 में आ गए. 271 AAC पेनल्टी जो लाई गई थी वो टैक्सेशन लॉज अमेंडमेंट एक्ट जो ऑर्डिनेंस आया था 15/12/2016 को, वो प्रोविजन जब आए, इसका संशोधन करना भूल गए. तो जो क्लॉज बी है सबसेक्शन 9 का, इट इज लाइंग डॉर्मेंट with no consequences. Similarly, failure to record receipts. I failed to record receipts which were having impact on the total income. This which have impact on total income phrase has been added only against this clause. In earlier clauses, this kind of phrase is not appearing. So, if there was some receipt which I failed to record in my books of account, and that will be relevant for the purpose of levy penalty if it had got determination, it had got bearing on my tax liability. So, if there is an entry provider, accommodation entry, Ahmedabad is no different than Delhi, no different than Calcutta. Once I was speaking in Calcutta, I asked my chartered accountant friends, there. With offense to none. Now you tell me, how have you earned this kind of a credit that we often call a company Calcutta company? And the moment somebody says Calcutta company, then what is this company all about? Everybody knows by that phrase. So how have you earned this kind of sobriquet? But that was on the lighter side. So if I fail to record, so if there is an accommodation entry provider, he says that I make book entries on the debit side, I make book entries on the credit side because I am accommodation entry provider. Therefore, these book entries have got no bearing on the total income, at least of mine. Therefore, you kindly see there is a false entry. There is a false entry. And false entry is one of the clauses of misreporting. But then it doesn't have any consequence because both debits and credits entries, even though they are false, they are not giving rise to any income. Therefore, there is no question of any penalty. So, at the end of the day, in the matter of section 270 capital A, what ultimately comes is that it may be misreporting, it may be an instance of misreporting, it may be an instance of those 6 things which are there under subsection 9, but then ultimately there is no tax liability, there is no assessed income which can be said to be higher than the processed income, then there is no consequence of penalty. But now certain questions which come in my mind, and they may be coming in yours also, कि अंडर रिपोर्टेड इनकम का जो मतलब दिया है, जैसा मैंने उसको सिंप्लीफाई कर दिया कि एसेस्ड इनकम और प्रोसेस्ड इनकम का डिफरेंस अंडर रिपोर्टेड है जिसको पेनल्टी के लिए कंसीडर किया जाएगा. लेकिन व्हाट अबाउट रिटर्न इनकम and processed income difference? What is if you file a returned income, say 1 crore of rupees, and then there are some additions which are made under section 143(1), that is called adjustments, and that 1 crore becomes 3 crores because of 143(1) adjustments. Now there is no penalty with reference to this difference of rupees 2 crore. There is no penalty. I want to ask a question, why? The answer which I get, though it may appear to be weird also, that when something was so ex facie, when something was so apparent, when something was clearly to be found out from the return, and if instead of assessing officer made of bones and flesh has done it, the machine has done it, then why should there be penalty? That may be an answer. But even I find that logic quite strange. Now, if there was something so apparent, and yet SSE chose to file an incorrect return on the face of it, now there is all the more reason that it should be visited with penalty. But as I said, the strange are the ways. Prior to 1989, my seniors, my friends, my contemporaries would recollect that there was prima facie adjustment regime 143(1)(a), and there used to be additional tax under section 143 subsection 1 capital A equal to 20% of the tax on such adjustments. And it was so provided in the then 270(11)(c) by one explanation 6 that where SSE has paid additional tax in respect of adjustments made under section 143(1)(a), then penalty under section 270(11)(c) would not be imposed. But in the new regime, under section 270 capital A, now despite such clear-cut and which can be conscious omission, which can be conscious error on the part of an SSE, if machine is making adjustments, is inflating your income assessed or processed, then there is no case for penalty, something which is very strange. Now you file revised return, though the time of revision of return has been considerably reduced, but then let us take a theoretical example. Now if you revise your return within time, enhancing your returned income to an astronomical figure, yet there is no case for penalty. Now, the settled law, which we have read so far, which I have been taught, and so were you, that concealment will have to be seen, should be seen, must be seen with reference to the return originally filed by you. So, between the date when you filed your return originally and the date when you revised the return, you revised it at an astronomically high figure, and yet no penalty has been envisaged by the legislature is something which I, as a student of law, now find it very hard to fathom. And you know, we tend to take a very important thing which I am sharing with all of you. We often tend to take that our right to revise our return is unlimited. The moment I remember that some income, I show it in the revised return, as if that kind of a permission is available under the law 24/7. It's not like this. If you read section 139, subsection 5, which says any error or omission or wrong statement discovered. Discovery means you did not know. You somehow stumbled upon. But then if you were knowing something, I remember an SSE. Now, before he was issued notice under section 143(2), he revised his return. He said that the God came in his dream and said that penny stock gain which you have not offered to tax, you offer it in the revised return. So he offered that gain on penny stocks as his additional income in the revised, and revised return was filed in time. The question was, now can in such circumstance that revision of return can be said to be in accordance with the law? No. Because if somebody wants to say that he discovered that there was a penny stock, there was a profit on penny stock, which he did not disclose that point of time when he filed his return originally, and therefore he is offering it in the revised return, sorry, that is not discovery. So the ingredients of section 139(5) are not as simple as they appear to be. I think my fellow speaker has come. Sir, you are the speaker. Though I have lightened your burden by de-stressing them during my discussions a bit. But of course, I would also like to sit in your, because there are lots of pressures. I mean, we lawyers, chartered accountants, I remember as a chartered accountant when I used to practice, apart from those 2-3 months, or rather 1 month when we used to do audit, there was not much pressure. Pressure used to mount in the last fag end when the limitation was coming for doing audit, because every auditee or entity वो आते ही लास्ट में है. वो 30 सितंबर को 31 अक्टूबर कर दो तो वो 31 अक्टूबर को आएंगे, 31 अक्टूबर को 30 नवंबर कर दो वो 29-30 नवंबर को ही आएंगे. So at that time, yes, as a chartered accountant, I used to feel pressure. But as a lawyer, I mean, every day you have got exams, and maybe out of 10 or 15 exams which are listed that day, in how many exams, I mean, ultimately you will be heard. That again is a question. So there's a lot of stress in the. But then one stress which I have, which I have sent to Ahmedabad. Don't quote, though I am on record. Don't quote it. Then really it becomes very stressful. Friends, penalties, I can keep on speaking. Speaking is my bread and butter also. So, but then we'll have to, even if I have been given half an hour less out of the allotted time, but then I do not want to do the same thing with my fellow co-speaker. So, no, sir, I also want to de-stress me. So, thank you. But then, since you have called a poet, so बहुत दिन में मिले हो सुनाकर ही छोड़ूंगा. Now, one poem. In fact, this is this hobby which I have discovered. Again, it de-stresses me a lot. I'm in Ahmedabad. From Vrindavan, Krishna went to Dwarika. Dwarka is in Gujarat. So I have composed about 250 poems last 2.5 years. On this Mahabharata, I have composed one poem, but this is not that poem which is under process of being approved to be taught to the 11th and 12th standard students. The name of this poem is यत्र तत्र सर्वत्र हो. अब भाई आप मिले हो, इतने वर्षों में आपने मुझे बुलाया है, तो कुछ तो भुगतान करना होगा. हालांकि पार्टली वो मुझे मिल चुका है, लेकिन पार्टली ये आप कर रहा. यत्र तत्र सर्वत्र हो, इसका मतलब है कि ऐसा हो और ऐसा ना हो. महाभारत के प्रसंग हैं, अधिकांश रूप से आपको मालूम होने चाहिए. आप गुजरात से हैं, कृष्ण जहाँ आए थे वहाँ से हैं, तो मैं बोलूँगा, 2 मिनट की बात है, सुनना पड़ेगा. दुरूह यक्ष के प्रश्न हो, धर्मराज श्री कृष्ण संग हो, पाउतर देव प्रसन्नित हो, मूर्छित पुनः इस पंडित हो. 5 में से 4 पांडव गए पानी लेने. यक्ष ने प्रश्न पूछा, उत्तर नहीं दे पाए, मूर्छित हो गए. फिर युधिष्ठिर गए, उन्होंने उत्तर दिए. दुरूह यक्ष के प्रश्न हो, धर्मराज श्री कृष्ण संग हो, पाउत्तर देव प्रसन्नित हो, मूर्छित पुनः इस पंडित हो. जल महल प्रभा प्रतिबिंबित हो, दुर्योधन चकित अचंभित हो, पांचाली आह्लादित हो, हा दुर्योधन उपहासित हो. यदि दुशासन खलवेश हो, और दुर्योधन उपदेश हो, तब खुले द्रौपदी केश हो, तब विकल्प धर्म युद्ध शेष हो. धर्म युद्ध की हुंकार हो, गांडीव सम ललकार हो, कृष्ण का शंख पुकार हो, चाहे कौरव संख्य अपार हो. ना पार्थ स्वजन बोध हो. अरे अर्जुन बोले, ये मेरा ताऊ है, ये मेरा भाई है. ना पार्थ स्वजन बोध हो, योगेश्वर धर्म प्रबोध हो. हाँ कुरुक्षेत्रे रणभेरी हो, हरि गीता ज्ञान बिखेरी हो. पितामह अडिग प्रतिज्ञा हो, ना दुर्योधन की अवज्ञा हो. कर्णशूर वीर सादानी हो, हाँ कुंती पुत्र स्वाभिमानी हो. तनय घटोत्कच समवीर हो, बालक अभिमन्यु अधीर हो. निषाद एकलव्य शिष्य हो, अर्जुन धनुर्धर भविष्य हो. चक्र सुदर्शन तेज हो, कौरव बल निस्तेज हो. कुशल पार्थ रथ सारथी हो, कुरुसेना तब बन प्रार्थी हो. ना भीष्म का शर शयन हो, ना धृतराष्ट्र मोह नयन हो. गांधारी समनुचारी हो, कोख सुभद्र किलकारी हो. जब सूर्य पथ अवरुद्ध हो, तब जयद्रथ वध अनिरुद्ध हो. चाहे युद्ध नियम विरुद्ध हो, प्रतिशोध पार्थ विशुद्ध हो. हाँ अश्वत्थामा हता था, हाँ अश्वत्थामा हता था, पर क्या सच द्रोण को पता था, नरोवा कुंजवासी न उक्ति हो, है युधिष्ठिर तो सत्य अभिव्यक्ति हो, यत्र तत्र सर्वत्र हो, यत्र तत्र सर्वत्र हो. Thank you.
Rakesh sir, first of all, thanks a lot for giving your precious time. I completely agree that from 2013, after 10 years you came to the Ahmedabad branch for delivering the session, but we are thankful to guide not only on the various aspects of the income tax, but also make aware whether to take the directorship or not. And along with that, we are also thankful that this, we invited you after a long time, but you took us to the Vrindavan and enlightened us. Thanks a lot for your time, sir. Thank you. Thank you.